We are a global network of accountants around the world. Our primary mission is to help accountants and a small number of business advisors help their client have a better life by creating and developing a better business. That's essentially what we do. So our goal really is to help accountants become more relevant insofar as they can and should be providing business advisory services.
Yes, hi, I'm, as you say, I'm Paul Scholes from Atria Associates, based in South London. Small sole practitioner, having been through 30, 40 years of various practices and lots of clients. And now sitting back a bit and taking stock of what's been going on.
I run Emmaus Bristol, which is part of an international network of organisations that help homeless people. But I'm a social entrepreneur. I set things up, and I was involved in setting up Emmaus Bristol along with 5 other charities, which help those who are most disadvantaged in society. So that's what I do.
Well, I think it does come back to this client selection issue, that if you've got a client in an industry that isn't growing, it's going to be very difficult for either party to do anything about it. On the other hand, I think accountants should take a much more proactive role in helping their existing and certainly prospective clients design and develop a business model which has, growth potential in it. There's any number of resources, and by the way, I'm not talking about business planning. Business plans today fail the instant they meet the first customer. I think nowadays we've got to be thinking about business modeling, which is really about identifying the customers you're going to service, identifying what the value proposition, what channels you're going to be using to get to or service those customers, what type of relationship you're going to have. There are lots of methodologies out there in order to do that, and that's the language that accountants need to be talking, and that will help them grow their practice and through growing their clients' businesses. And that, I think, is the key to all of it. Really, it's not about just doing forecasts and cash flow projections, because let's face it, they've been doing that ever since spreadsheets were invented, and even before then. So I don't think that's going to cut it much future. I think it's, and both Paul and Richard made the point. They like, from Richard's point of view, he likes his accountant to be proactive, or his lawyer to be proactive. Get in my face, give me some ideas. Invite me to a breakfast meeting in the morning with maybe a few other of your clients in different industries, and let's throw some ideas around and so on. You always come away from those meetings with some value. It happens all the time. And even if the accountant, and most times we would be recommending the accountant doesn't charge for that. It's an engagement process. It gets people thinking, and it completely repositions you. And that then gives you an opportunity to do the real value-added work of business model design and helping them work through. Then you become much more than their trusted advisor. You become an essential element in the cog of progress for their practice. And that, I think, is where we've got to go. And I think a lot of younger practices in particular are moving down that route.
I have a real problem with growth. It's been the mantra of business for decades, if not 100 years. And growth at all costs, as far as I'm concerned, just makes you fat. I am far more inclined to look at what a business has today and make better use of it. There can be far more made through efficiency than there can through just going out and trying to make yourself bigger than you were this time last week. Whether you're an eco-warrior or not, the resources that we have are limited or are costly, and I think we should make more use of them. As I said earlier, my practice is now a third of what it was 3 or 4 years ago, and yet my income isn't significantly different to what it was 3 or 4 years ago. So I've decreased in size dramatically. But I'm making better use of resources, and I've saved myself costs. And I think we can do the same for our clients. We can tell them to stop running in the fast lane to try and get as big as they can, and perhaps come back to the middle lane and look at what they've got and take some time to make better use of resources. So I think unless there are clients that really do need to grow quickly in order to service finance, for example, I'm more inclined to show a client how better to run their business with what they've got.
I mean, the business model, business modelling, I think, is something that is really, really important. And I've not heard anybody talk quite so efficiently about it, actually. You know, spreadsheets, I mean, anybody can write a spreadsheet, and you can put any old figures in, because I do it frequently. And I think the thing about growth is actually I'm more interested in sustainability.
Yeah, 100%.
Sustaining the business. As far as growth is concerned, the only way I want to grow is to help more people. That's what we're here for. We're here to help homeless people and people who are destitute. How can I get better leverage on the assets I'm currently engaged to actually create more value added for the people we're trying to deal? I think, you know, in our model, you know, we provide home and work for homeless people. The mantras there is to spend probably 2 or 3 million getting one of these places up and rolling. Well, actually, that's an awful lot of money. What leverage are we getting for 2 or 3 million? And I think that's the question that I'd like my accountant to ask us. You know, where's your leverage? How are you using 2 or 3 million to help people? How much is it costing per annum, per person that you're helping? Is there a more efficient way of doing it? Can you reach more people by spending the same money? So in a way, it probably backs up both Paul and Rick in what they've said. So I think it's right asking the right question, actually. You know, and so few people ask the right question. So I think it's probably down to training, it's down to experience of accountants, and I think for me, the accountants that are really, really valuable really do understand business and really do understand markets and a lot more than just how to crunch a load of numbers. And I think, unfortunately, the training because I've been through the training, not very successfully in the end, which is why I'm an entrepreneur. But all the training was all about, it wasn't about business, it was just about, you know, and it's not much the same today, because our accountant's ACC qualified. I looked at the stuff she was looking at it. A lot of it was actually not very relevant, quite frankly. Actually, the real value added is about sustainability. It's about marketing. It's about modelling. It's more the sort of thing you might find on an MBA, actually.
Typically, with really a business plan is just a set of hypotheses that the person putting it together has about the future, and more often than not, it involves just you know, a linear extension of what they're doing at the moment. When you start relating that to some of the other issues that both Paul and Richard raised here, I think it's very relevant, and that is that it's very difficult to motivate a team, for example, by saying, guess what, guys, next year we're going to plan for 10%. It's like trying to be coaching a football team and say, next year we're going to come second last instead of last. The whole idea of business modeling is to start with the customer. Think about who is the customer, what do they need, how can we fill that need, what sort of relationship do we have with them, what type of channels will we use to both service them, to get them to market them, what sort of pricing strategy will we put in place, and so on. You know, President Eisenhower even is famous for once saying that planning is essential, but plans are useless. And I think it's so true. The process that you need to go through, and nowadays I think things are changing so rapidly. We can't afford to sit back and map out 3 to 5 year business plans as we used to do, because within that time frame, that phrase I used before, a business plan fails the minute it meets a real customer. Whereas the sort of lean startup methodology that's coming out now, that is really taking off, certainly in the US, and I suspect also in Europe and the UK, is saying, look, let's develop a minimum viable product or service. Let's get it into the market as rapidly as possible. Let's see whether customers are willing to pay for it. If they're not willing to pay for it, we need to pivot and put something else in place and just keep testing that hypothesis. And
I think it's something that you do on a daily basis. You need to get into the habit of every now and again taking a full stop and looking at the business, and that can be your own business, that can be the client's business, and giving the client the opportunity to sit down. Sometimes I'll phone up a client about the most mundane of thing, and I get 20 minutes them talking to me about the business. And sometimes that's the only opportunity they get to sit and think about their business, because the rest of the time they're running, they've got their staff, their customers, their suppliers to deal with. And my 20-minute phone call was probably very valuable to them, just to take a full stop. And so planning and modelling takes place, as far as I'm concerned, as we go along. But you need the experience to do it, and I do wonder sometimes as to whether accountants, as Richard was saying earlier, whether accountants and their training are sufficient for that purpose. Mine's come from experience and going partly through a management training course where I got to the marketing bit and realised that I wish I'd been in marketing all my life instead of accountancy, because marketing is so misunderstood by most accountants, what it actually involves. It involves the entire business, not just looking out there and getting more business in. Just one thing on this, on the profit motive. As far as I'm concerned, profit, of course, is important, but as far as I'm concerned, it's also what level of profit is enough, and whether you're going for profit is too much. And that goes back to Richard's point on sustainability. And sometimes I think even the profit motive almost gets to greed, and I think that's where we've suffered in the West. But that's for a discussion on another day, I think.
Frequently I've got strategies, business plans, modelling. I use all of them actually. But I think it was Rick who said as soon as you've written it, it's out of date. Yeah. I tend to look at business planning and modelling as a map. So if I need to get from Bristol to Manchester, yes, of course I could use the M5, but if there's a blockage on the M5, then I'll find a different route. So I think any business plan needs to be adjustable. So you need to frequently look at it, and I usually use a business plan as a map.